Welcome everyone to Module 5, Globalization and the Environment. Today we're going to discuss, or what this last 2 weeks we focused on, were sustainability in the global context when it comes to climate change and the communities that it affects, as well as biophilic cities and the current dilemmas of globalization and the future and how we can prepare for creating a more sustainable environment. So the 2022 IPCC report clearly explains a number of issues regarding climate change. Urban areas worldwide are facing significant increase in climate change related risks, particularly in cities with limited adaptive capacity, especially in low and middle income countries, as well as smaller urban regions. This is aggravated by rapid urban population growth, with over 90% of this growth happening in less developed regions between 2015 and 2020, it's cited. And then climate change's impact is most pronounced in these urban communities, and it disproportionately affects these marginalized populations due to the different drivers of inequality, such as gender, socioeconomic status, race, age, and cultural norms. We see that in these smaller regions and these lower income countries, and how they're being, disproportionately affected just because of the way that they live their life. They don't have the luxuries that we do. And then, so inclusive adaptation plans are crucial, but many urban plans fail to involve these diverse and marginalized communities. Despite many of these cities having developed those inclusive adaptation plans, only a limited number are put into action. And overall, if we're going to create the sensible city, there needs to be further adaptive planning for these communities, and there needs to be more policies that will create climate change solutions and mitigations, as well as just to overall create futures for these marginalized communities through the interconnectedness of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Declan. Next, we watched a lecture by Tim Beatley and Carla Jones Harrell. It was about the biophilia movement, or the movement of we want to interact with nature, not in the way we have been previously. We'll be more so focused on how can we remove nature as much as possible. That's why we have these sprawling urban cityscapes of just, modern utopia, sort of just steel structures, consistent sort of gray undertones, very dystopian almost society we have now. Most people nowadays have realized that the biophilic nature of our previous interactions with the world around us have been more beneficial towards our mental health. You can see there have been studies about depression is lowered when we're exposed to nature, and we can really start to see the effects in cities like Richmond, Virginia, where more pushing for park access for areas where there might not be as much accessibility. A lot of minority areas are segregated from these natural areas that are really beneficial for our overall well-being, and that's what the biophilia movement is about. We need to integrate nature and the built cities, the built infrastructure, our built world. We need to integrate them together. You can see these design plans for towers, skyscrapers that integrate plant life and trees. It's almost like a garden at every level, and that's what the future needs to be, because it has this clear impact. We've been, it's in our DNA. We feel comforted by these sort of scenarios, these sort of sceneries. Next, we looked into Hazel Henderson's Beyond Globalization. We talked about the current dilemmas of globalization. In particular, she talks about how we've sort of focused on the virtual, she talks a lot about the tech bubbles, the new, the markets, stock market, how it's all just a bubble, it's all virtual. There's no real stock behind it. And she has this great analogy to, you can't put virtual gasoline in a car. We need real substance to our markets. And these bubbles, they're just made to collapse. And we're better off without them, as she states. So we need to focus on solutions to improve our economy, stop looking at the GNP, the GDP, look elsewhere for measures of our economic success. And she also points out that our elected officials have become more, I don't want to say favorited, but they do favor to some extent these large corporations more than the people who elect them. They give corporations these, almost just complete leeway in certain areas. Antitrust laws, things like that, have just been kind of ignored and slowly rolled back. And these corporations have these measures they take just to influence so much. They donate money to the people that they want to, protect them. And it's become slowly less about us and more about the people who are responsible for these tech bubbles, responsible for these issues with the economy. And Henderson wants to, point out the dilemma, point out we need to solve this. It needs to be solved if our global society can progress any further. Thank you. Next, we have Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Aiden. So I'll be starting off with the reading from Parag Khanna, I think that's how you pronounce it, as he talks about globalization, geopolitics, and connectivity, and how really the world is evolving at a remarkable speed. He emphasized how resilience and acceleration of globalization has been really reshaping our world, which is taking away from states and governments since like region control, increasing their important roles simultaneously, which we've never seen in human history. This is creating a complex global risk society. And we also learned about megacities and their rising recognition, global powerhouses, as they already host most of the world's population in economic power, which is redefining the global order as we see them coming. Nankana's prediction for 2035 is that the world will be highly focused on interconnected urban areas, which we should be expected to be interdisciplinary in our studies and in the future. And we should be knowledgeable in politics, economics, and technology, and aware of like the social and cultural issues that are happening. He states that our adaptability will be our greatest strength, especially with the changes of demographic imbalances, as Declan mentioned, politics, economics, technological disruptions, and climate change. When he in his TED Talk. We also watched the Human Flow trailer, which really helped us understand the real world impact of these global changes, and it really shows us as like a visualization of the effect of the global refugee crisis and how. And then we saw like a little point of view video of the living conditions in Del Rio, Texas, how he explains how he was forced to face like views of homelessness, limited access to basic needs, and insecurities. Then we also read a chapter from the History of Future Cities, which basically talks about Dubai's transformation from a desert town to a global metropolis through urban planning and economic diversification. Then after reading chapter 12 of How Buildings Really Learn, we got introduced to the concept of high road and low road buildings, which I had no idea was, but it basically emphasized the importance of designing adaptable structures that can evolve over time to achieve a long-term goal. And then in conclusion, we stand at the threshold of an ever-changing world. We must embrace this, stay informed, and adapt to a shifting global landscape. We have to understand that what we need to do and be informed. And then we learn in the future to embrace biophilia and tackle the dilemmas as everything is changing. But that is it. Thank you guys for listening.